We're here with Shelly Slater, and Shelly Slater has a English Bulldog that she brought to us for an examination, and she ended up having facial surgery. And Shelly's going to talk a little bit in a minute about how she felt when we first told her what Annie's condition was. But Bulldogs in general have a condition called Brachycephalic disease, and what that really means is that their faces are pushed in, which means that their noses are pushed in, they tend to have folds on their faces, and also what they tend to have is what's called an elongated soft palate. Now when that happens, when their noses are kind of squished and their palate is long, they have a really hard time breathing. You may notice that with Bulldogs when they run around or even when they walk, that they have a very noisy breathing pattern. They will also snore, which is a big thing. Now some people think these things are funny, but in reality they're actually making it very hard for those dogs to breathe well. So when Shelly brought Annie in and we talked about this, I said, well, we can do these surgeries. We can open up her nose, we can remove the folds from her face, which also helps with her eyes, and we can trim the soft palate to make her breathe better. I want Shelly to kind of talk about how she felt when I mentioned that to her.
I was a little concerned because I felt like she was having a lot of surgeries at once because she was going in to be spayed, and I thought, okay, we're adding all this other stuff, and we pretty much felt like we were carving her up like a turkey, is what my husband said. But I had a Bulldog before that didn't have quite such a pushed-in nose and didn't have the big roll on the nose. I didn't know about the inside stuff. And she was able to get around really well and play a lot and do a lot of things that I just thought all Bulldogs could do. So when he said this, it all was like, oh my gosh, I see these other dogs that can't hardly move, that are older, maybe I can help her. So we decided to do it. And it's worked out really well, but when we decided to do it, Dr. Saleh said, that he was going to do it, and I said, well, don't do this if you don't have time, whatever. Well, I was able to do everything, and when I picked her up, I thought I was going to see a bloody mess, and instead, she looked fine. You could see the stitches on her face, and her nose, if you look close, looked a little differently, but she immediately felt better. I felt like she could run better, which I wasn't supposed to let her run, but she was running, she was happy, she loved Dr. Saleh, she didn't hate him for what he had done, and I've noticed a huge difference in her.
So Shelly will take Annie to the park, and she really notices the difference as in comparison to other dogs. And so you'll see the dogs that have this procedure done, they breathe better, which is nice because they can exercise longer. They're also less prone to heat stroke because they can actually eliminate the heat from their body better because they're breathing better. So there's a lot of benefits, and those are the immediate benefits, but what a lot of people forget is that when Bulldogs get older and they get to about 6 or 7 years of age, that they've been breathing so hard for so long that they develop all these secondary problems, which then really start to bother the owner and the pet. And then they ask to have these problems treated. Well, some of those changes are permanent. You can't change that. They cause damage to their vocal cords, they cause damage to their lungs, and those are things that you can never reverse. So it's very important that these procedures are done early in life, so there's a lot of benefit, and usually these dogs live longer. So talk a little bit about how she plays in the park and when you talk to other people about it.
So when we go to the park, there are a lot of dogs there that aren't a Bulldog type, but every now and then we have English Bulldogs come and the French Bulldogs come, and one in particular that I took pictures of, when they play, they're like, they can't get enough air, they're like, and when she pants, she's like a regular dog would do. So you kind of have to see the pictures, and I have talked to people about it, but I think when you do it when they're young, and you told me and I trusted you and I just said, let's just go for it. You don't realize how great it is until you see other dogs that are struggling just to walk. They're struggling. Some of those Bulldogs are really having issues. And then I also tell Dr. Saleh that I have, just so happens, we have a white English Bulldog, and I have 2 friends that have white English Bulldogs that are very similar in age, and they play so well. And Annie, I mean, they run, they can go because they're young, but she breathes so much easier than they breathe. And they notice it. They're like, and then I tell them what we did to her. And, you know, it's scary when you tell people so many different surgeries, but you also said it's all done by laser, so you don't have a lot of bleeding and yuckiness afterwards. So she felt fine. It was fine for her.
Right. So thank you for coming in, telling us about Annie.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to call Ehrlich Animal Hospital and we'll discuss these options with you. But this is a very important procedure for brachycephalic dogs like Bulldogs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.